It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. It's the only daily boxing talk show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing all right today. Yeah, I hope you're doing good. Give a special shout out to all of our listeners on WGIG in Brunswick, Georgia. Glad to be part of your day today, or morning, or night, or whenever. Hey, today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant, located on beautiful St. Simons Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328, and everybody in the WGIG listening area. If you haven't checked out Sal's, swing on over to St. Simons, Frederica Drive. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simons for an authentic Italian meal. Check it out, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. And today's show is also being brought to us in part by, you guessed it, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. It's available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of it right now while you're watching or listening to the show. Just go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. If you're looking to get a signed copy, don't worry about it. Just visit our website, billycboxing.com, and click on the book. Yeah, that's it. Just click on the book and follow directions. Make sure you put in there what you want written on the book. Or just come on up to me in a live boxing event. I go to them all the time. If you see me, I usually never leave home without some books. And we got a new shipment in, so we've been going through them. I want to thank everybody for getting the book. It's a good time to get it. We are optioned for a movie, so we're hoping that that comes to the big screen soon. So you better read the book now. Don't be one of these people that say, "Oh, I'll wait for the movie." Come on, man. The book is, you know, they always change things around with the movie. The book is where it's at. Anyway, coming up a little bit later on this show, we got Boxing Hall of Famer Larry Hazzard scheduled to join us. My man Sal won't be with us today. He had something come up, and we also won't be doing the blast from the past today. Same thing with Alex, my man Alex Papali, had a last-minute situation that he had to deal with. So it's just me and you today. And speaking of me and you, I'm going to open up the phone lines today. So feel free to give us a call, unless Larry's on the phone. 845-228-8710. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, all that stuff. Today's topic, one of today's topics, I should say, Anthony Joshua is taking on Kubrat Pulev. Pulev has been patiently waiting for his shot at the title. He's been the mandatory for Joshua's IBF belt. And, he made a lot of money stepping aside, but the fight's finally coming pretty soon, another month or so. And, you guys, if you've ever listened to the show before, I'm a huge fan of Anthony Joshua. I think he's the best heavyweight on the planet today. And I think he's getting better and better. By far has been in the most exciting, definitely heavyweight fight of the year. And I still think it's the best fight of the year so far. I mean, we've seen some great fights this year, including the last one we just saw, Triple G and Canelo. Although, when I look at fights, and not only do I see the fight for what it is, if it's exciting, if it's puts two talented fighters against each other, etc., etc. I also look at the implications it has on the sport itself, and I think it would be hard to find a fight, even Triple G Canelo, that had more implications on the sport of boxing than Anthony Joshua against Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, it was clearly the passing of the torch. And keeping in mind that Klitschko had already lost to Tyson Fury. Some people didn't like that result. Some people didn't like the way Klitschko lost. A lot of old-timers, older than me, feel that you got to decisively beat the champion, which means knock him the F out to win the belt, especially a guy that's had the title for so long like Klitschko did. Tyson Fury didn't do that, but Anthony Joshua did. And it was a dramatic win. It was a dramatic fight because both fighters hit the canvas. Anthony Joshua had to prove a lot of things to us, and it's almost like he arrived officially in that fight, even despite him already having a title. With all that said, I don't see him losing to Pulev. I'm not suggesting Kubrat Pulev is not a worthy opponent, because he is. I've seen him fight live in Denmark, so I was ringside. I did see this guy up close, not just on clips and TV or whatever. And he's a talented fighter. And I have also seen different versions of him. And when you're in the biggest fight of your career, a lot of times, most times, it should anyway, bring out the best in you. And that's what I'm expecting from Kubrat Pulev when he steps in the ring against my man AJ. But with all that said, I do think Anthony Joshua is going to win the fight. But my question is it going to be exciting? Will it be an exciting fight? That's the question. And the reason why I say that is, the pressure that's on Anthony Joshua right now, you may not realize it, but I mean, the guy just wins a fight against Klitschko, knocks him out, gets him off the canvas, couldn't even raise his arms during that fight. He was so exhausted. And, now what does he do for a swan song? If he doesn't knock out Pulev, and he said himself that he needs to knock him out, that's putting pressure on himself already. And Pulev, it's not like he's a powder puff puncher. I mean, this guy can land some heavy shots. And we did see that, Anthony Joshua you were able to land punches on him. He did have some chinks in his armor in terms of defense. The pressure's on him. Do I think it's going to be an exciting fight? I kind of do. I think because of that pressure, Anthony Joshua may try too hard, similar to Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder, known, for knocking people out, when he gets put in there with his normal sacrificial lamb, he goes for the kill. He goes in for the kill. The pressure's on him. From the opening bell, he goes in for the kill. And the pressure's on him. And then guys like me criticize him for struggling with a guy he should have knocked out. But, rather than follow a game plan or rather than break a fighter down like you're supposed to do, he goes in for the kill. Is Anthony Joshua going to do the same thing? It's yet to be seen. But I hope not. I hope that the one thing I really admire about Anthony Joshua is the simple fact that he seems to listen to the people around him. He seems to be a sponge to learn and try and get better and better and better. So I don't know. I think that we are going to see a good fight, an exciting fight, and I think that if you don't think so already, after the fight between AJ and Kubrat Pulev, you're certainly going to feel that he is definitely the best heavyweight on the planet today. And with that said, we also have another big heavyweight fight in November. Deontay Wilder finally, in my opinion, stepping up and fighting a real fight. I say a real fight, not you know, I mean, come on. He's been in real fights before. Tor Spitska, when he won the title against Berman Stavern. I mean, they were real fights. But my point is he's fighting a really legitimate, proven, top-level heavyweight, despite being 38 years old and despite being out of the ring for a year. Luis Ortiz will be the toughest opponent to date for Deontay Wilder, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the game plan is. Mark Breland, who his trainer had put together a great game plan that Deontay Wilder followed when he fought Stavern. But since then, there's been no inkling of a game plan other than go destroy this guy. So it's going to be interesting to see if the frequency of seek and destroy attitude from Deontay Wilder is curbed and he tries to fight smart against Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz is faster than any fighter he's been in the ring with. And, Luis Ortiz, he's had his moments as well, sometimes fighting good and sometimes not so much. I think the best fight of his career so far, I was lucky enough to be ringside for, was his win over Bryant Jennings. And I thought, even though he was bigger than Jennings, I think very highly of Bryant Jennings. The guy's always in shape, and even though he's a small fighter for a heavyweight, I always kind of compared him as a combination, if he could mold the two together, of Michael Spinks and Evander Holyfield. The conditioning and heart of Evander Holyfield and the physique and kind of style of Michael Spinks. Bryant Jennings has a tendency to go in there awkwardly and land some punches kind of quickly, and then he's out of harm's way because he's fighting the bigger guys all the time. So I gave Luis Ortiz a lot of credit for not only beating Jennings, but destroying him, knocked him out. So I like both of these fights. I like Wilder-Ortiz, and I like AJ against Pulev. And I certainly hope that we get to see the winner of each of these fights go head-to-head early 2018. I mean, because face it, we've had a fantastic 2017. So we're keeping the phone lines open today. So if you get the sand out of your eyes and finish that cup of coffee and you want to give us a call, 845-228-8710. The only time we are going to close the phone lines is when we have Larry come on, which will be in about a half hour. So if you got something to say, something to ask, something to point out, give us a shout. 845-228-8710. Last night there was some fights, and, it's got me thinking about the scoring system and something I want to talk to Larry about when we get him on in a little bit. But another draw. When we changed the scoring system to the 10-point must system and went to the 3 judges and stuff, one of the reasons they changed was to try to prevent draws. And I don't know about you, but it seems like we've come across several draws lately, and we had one last night. A couple of unbeaten featherweight prospects in Ludwan Barthelemy and Eduardo Ramirez fought 10 rounds, and at the end, it was a draw. Barthelemy is now 13-0-1 with 7 knockouts. Ramirez 20-0 and 3 draws with 7 knockouts. The way the judges scored it, one had it 97-93 for Barthelemy, one had it 96-94 for Ramirez, and the third, well, he had it even 95-95. Resulting in a draw. So, hopefully we'll see these two guys fight again. I liked the fight to begin with because it put 2 prospects against each other. And that's the way boxing should be. You work your way up to 13, 15, 20-0, and you should be fighting another guy similar to get you into that contender ranking. Today, too often than not, we see fighters like these, 13-0, 20-0, fighting guys with 500 records, and then next thing you know, they're in a world title shot, and then they lose, and somebody says, well, hey, they were exposed, and maybe rightfully so. I don't know. Also on that card in a featherweight contest as well, Alejandro Salinas took care of Duan Vu in a 8-round decision. The way the judges scored it, 80-72, 79-73, 77-75, all in favor of Salinas, who improves to 9-1 with 8 knockouts. Vu drops to 12-1 with 4 knockouts. And finally, a couple of unbeaten lightweight prospects. Brian Figueroa wins against Ivan Dominguez over 6 rounds. 58-56 is the way all 3 judges score it. Figueroa improves to 13-0 with 5 knockouts. And Ivan loses for the first time, 7-1-1 now with 4 knockouts. Earlier in the week, we were talking about the boring, all right? It was a boring fight. Joseph Parker against Hughie Fury. And when you mention Fury, the promoter of Fury was furious. Mick Hennessy felt that Hughie Fury did enough to win. As a matter of fact, he compared him to Muhammad Ali, which was pretty sad. But felt that he won the fight. Felt that he was outboxing Parker, etc., etc. Said he was going to, protest the fight to the WBO because obviously it was a WBO title fight. And, this is where the misconception of the sweet science comes into play. Over the last decade or so, a lot of young fans have been brainwashed to think that the sweet science means hit and not get hit. Well, they leave out the best part of that. Yes, hit and not get hit. But when you throw a punch and then you backpedal and you're at the other end of the ring and your opponent can't hit you, that's not really the definition of the sweet science, although we've had several fighters, specifically one, that has made a career of that and has been successful in brainwashing the fight fans, the young fight fans, to believe that that is truly the definition of the sweet science. Well, the definition of the sweet science, they leave out the most important part. Yes, hit and not get hit, but you still got to be in position to strike your opponent again. So the sweet science is someone that is standing within striking distance and you're trying to hit them and you can't, because they're avoiding you with defense, but they're hitting you at the same time. So that, my friends, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, that is the definition of the sweet science. And that is not what Hughie Fury was doing on Saturday night. Hughie Fury was literally throwing out a jab and then running, avoiding any kind of contact from Joseph Parker. Now, the vice president of the WBO, John Dugan, said his opinion is that the 12-round decision was correct, that, Joseph Parker won the fight. He said, and I quote, "I think he won the fight. I thought he won a close fight, but just because the score was wide doesn't mean it wasn't a close fight. With the way boxing scored, you can have an extremely close fight and have a boxer win every round by a close margin. That happens quite a bit. I thought the score 118-110 was the regular score, but I also thought the 114-114 score was somewhat unusual. Parker deserved the win. He boxed courageously in a hostile environment." The reason I bring up that quote is because it's going to be an important part of my conversation with my man Larry Hazzard coming up in about 15, 20 minutes from now. Is it time that we change the way we score boxing? Because, if it's a 10-point must system. So if you're watching a fight and you're scoring a fight, and it's a close fight. I mean, listen, the Triple G Canelo fight, there were a couple of rounds that could have gone either way. I personally scored the fight 116-112. That's me. Larry Hazzard scored it 116-112. That was him. Harold Letterman scored it 116-112. That was him. One judge scored it 115-113. We know that the plant judge, Adelie Bird, had it 118-110. and the last judge had it even. If the scoring system, if you take a look at the scoring system, and I don't want to get too much involved with this because I'm going to talk to Larry about it, but if you take a look at the scoring system and you see a close round, and because you have to score a 10-point for the winner, in your opinion, and 9-point for the loser, unless there's a knockdown or a point deduction, etc., it could be a close round. And you could have Fighter A, he said, well, Fighter A landed a couple of more punches. I'm giving him the round, 10-9. And you could basically see that throughout a fight. Now, one judge could score the fight 10-9 for the length of the fight and have it a shutout, even though every round could have gone either way. And that would make you understand why one judge would see it so differently than another. Maybe another judge on these close rounds is saying, well, I gave that last close round to Fighter A, so this round I'm going to give to Fighter B. And then you could see those discrepancies with the cards. You know, the way the game has changed, the way the fighters are fighting, because they don't go and attack each other anymore, you know, in an exciting fashion, in a dominating fashion, in a mano-a-mano type fashion, because they don't do that anymore. Maybe we have to make adjustments with the scoring system, and that's something that I'm going to talk to Larry Hazzard about coming up a little bit later. But, hey, listen, I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, I want to give you more on Badou Jack vacating his title. We were critical of him apparently ducking Dmitry Bivol, which was the mandatory, but Badou Jack says, nay, that's not why. And to me, his explanation is the same as what I've been saying, that he took an easier route. Hey, listen, hold that thought. We'll be back in about 2 minutes, so don't go anywhere.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Stop living with hair loss, that is. Losing your hair is no fun, and no one wants to be bald, but there is hope.
Getting my hair back was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I'm happy with the way I look now. I'm very excited about my hair.
I feel beautiful.
I love my hair.
Hair Club offers all proven hair loss solutions backed by our commitment to satisfaction guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with the solution you choose, Hair Club will apply the purchase price to another proven hair loss solution or transplant more hair at no charge.
It was the best thing I've ever done.
It looks good on me.
Call in the next 5 minutes to get your free brochure at no obligation. It will tell you everything you need to know about your hair loss problem, and it's free if you call now.
I am more pleased than what I had even imagined.
I at least look, I would say, 5 years younger.
I'm 52, and I look better now than I did when I was in my 40s.
I feel great.
And that's not all. The first 100 people who call will also receive $250 off any hair loss solution from Hair Club. Call now.
This is important news for people who had a hip replacement and then had to have additional surgery as the result of a faulty hip implant, or were diagnosed with high levels of metal in the blood, known as metallosis. You may have a right to a cash award and medical expenses. If you have been diagnosed with high levels of metal in your blood or have required more surgery because of hip implant failure, call the law offices of Davis & Crump right now. Our first consultation is free, and we don't get paid unless you get paid. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you!
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And we are going to keep the phone lines open today. It's a little slow. It's a slow day today. All around. Slow for boxing news. And I think people are in slow-mo today. 845-228-8710. We are going to have the phone lines open for about the next 10 minutes. And then after Larry's segment. So, hey, now's a good time. Earlier in the week, we were talking about Badou Jack. And you know, he just won his title a month or so ago, August 26th, when he knocked out Nathan Cleverly. And, you know, he improved at 22-1 with a couple of draws and 13 knockouts. An impressive fighter, in my opinion. A guy that, you know, when he lost, a lot of people wrote him off. But he got back up on that horse, and I think he's gotten better and better. I was expecting him to be one of the top dogs in the light heavyweight division, especially now that Andre Ward retired. It was announced earlier in the week that he said forget about it with the WBA. The WBA had ordered a fight with his mandatory title challenger in Dimitri Bivol. And Badou Jack, upon the advisement of his promotional guru, Floyd Mayweather, said, forget about it. We don't want that fight. Here's your belt back. And we're going to go look for other fights, like specifically Adonis Stevenson, who's 150 years old and has not demonstrated much over the last couple of years. A guy in his own right that has been avoiding all of the big fights and has been really saying, you know, that he's the best. And similar to Deontay Wilder, pounding his chest and really not backing it up. Some quotes from Jack seemed to be a little confusing. He says, I'm not ducking a guy with 11 fights. So he's discrediting Bivol because of the amount of fights he has, which is pretty ignorant. So if you are a boxing fan and you are thinking that Jack is right, then you don't know Jack. Because if you think that Dimitri Bivol, just because of his record, is not a good fighter, then I guess you never heard of a guy called Vasily Lomachenko. The problem with going by records, and we do this a lot, we go by the records. The networks go by the records. The fans go by the records. They look at a guy that they never heard of, coming from some country they never heard of, who's 30-0, and they say, ooh, he must be good, you know. Not so much. Not so much. And conversely, you could look at a guy that you never heard of, that came from a country you never heard of, and he's got a record of 14-10, and you say, he's a bum. He's a bum. You know, and then next thing you know, he beats the snot out of your guy. You know, you can't go by records. what you got to do is you got to, and don't get me wrong. Just like the great Bill Parcells once said, your record shows who you are. You are what your record says, and that's true. It is true. But when it comes to boxing, there's a couple of other tangibles that are thrown in there. And if you're not guided correctly, or if you're brought in and you're always fighting, you're the out-of-town guy coming in, and, you're always fighting, somebody else's fighter in their backyard, and, you put on a real good fight, but it's close and you lose. I managed a fighter, a middleweight, about 10 years ago, and that was the case with him. He really didn't have a home court. He had come from Canada and relocated here in the States, so he really didn't have a home court. And we found that we were always going to other people's backyards, and this guy was a good fighter. Would destroy heavyweight. He was a middleweight. He would destroy heavyweights in the gym, and he goes out to a fight, and he had this one problem where it would almost be like he was making it personal with the fight. His opponent hit him, so he hit him back. His opponent hit him twice, he hit him back twice. You can't get nothing on me. I'm going to give you back with it. And he would always lose these close decisions, or even worse, would end up with a draw. This guy had more draws than he had fights. And he would always complain in the locker room. Man, Bill, I got robbed again. No, I said, Keith, you didn't get robbed. You may have gotten robbed. Maybe I said, you may have gotten robbed. But you made your own bed. You didn't hit enough. When you're going in as the out-of-town guy, you got to go in there, and if he hits you twice, you got to hit him 5 times. If you expect to win a decision, you got to double or even triple the amount of punches that your opponent throws. So to suggest that a guy isn't good just because he's got 11 wins, or 11 fights, whatever, he's 11-0 with 9 knockouts, is ignorant. And, Badou Jack, under the advisement of his promoter, is trying to fool you as a fan. Here's some quotes. He says, he said that he's not talking to a guy. He says, they're working on something big, so I got to stay patient. He says, it was part of the agreement we had getting the world title shot with Cleverly, that we had to vacate that title after we won it. This is Badou Jack trying to convince the boxing public that the WBA suggested that they had to vacate it, or they, meaning Floyd Mayweather and another side deal that they had, asked them to vacate the title after he won it. And nothing for nothing, but Nathan Cleverly, going into the fight, in hindsight now, the way we saw the fight unfold, you could make a statement like that. But who thought going into that fight, and if you say you did, you're full of beans, who thought going into that fight that Nathan Cleverly was going to get destroyed by Badou Jack? Cleverly was. I said before that fight, I said that this is going to be the most entertaining and competitive fight on the card. So if somebody tries to tell me that they knew that Jack was going to destroy Cleverly, either they have a crystal ball, they're full of crap, or they know a hell of a lot more about both fighters than I do. And I would find that hard to believe. Not that I'm bragging, but I do this for a living. All I'm doing is, watching tape and researching fighters, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. He says, I'm not ducking. This is Badou Jack. I'm not ducking a guy who has only 11 fights. Look at the guys I fought. My promoter, who's Floyd Mayweather, is looking for bigger and better things for me. He says, I'm looking forward to what's next. I'm ready for whoever's next and the big checks. I want to fight Adonis Stevenson. He's a big name. He's probably the biggest name in the light heavyweight division now that Andre Ward retired. If there's bigger money and a bigger money fight, give me that fight. If it's Kovalev, give me him. I said on yesterday's show, I think it was yesterday, I said on yesterday's show that I believe that all fighters should make the maximum amount of money. I said that, and I believe that, and I feel that, and I want that to be true. But, unfortunately, in today's world of boxing, and specifically with the landscape, to do this is a mistake at this stage. This is a guy still remarketing himself. You know, he's coming back. He just won the biggest fight of his career, destroying Nathan Cleverly. The money was going to be there. The Bivol fight, you know, let's be real. He didn't vacate the title because he didn't feel that, the 11-0 guy wasn't worthy. You know, he didn't do that, as he's trying to suggest. You know, he's probably right in saying that it wasn't going to be a big money fight. But the guy is trying to make the most money for the least amount of risk. Who does that sound like? Who does that sound like? And I'm not opposed to a fighter making the most amount of money. I'm opposed to fighters ducking quality fighters for a lesser opponent. If Badou Jack has such a great promoter, then that great promoter should promote him and a fight with Bivol and make sure that both fighters make the money that they need. End of story. Why go? You see, what Floyd has done, and now what he's trying to get his fighters to do, is make the most money, which is great, but with someone else writing the checks. Floyd Mayweather's the promoter. Promoters are supposed to promote. If Floyd's such a great money guy and such a genius, well, then he should be promoting Badou Jack as the next best thing since sliced bread and the shoe was invented. He should be able to obtain a big money deal and a big money fight for Jack and for Bivol. And at the same time, have Badou Jack stake claim that he's the best light heavyweight in the sport. You see, boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, you can't just say, I'm the best, and people are supposed to believe you. There were actually fans throughout the last several years that used to argue with me, telling me that Floyd Mayweather is the best and that he could beat guys like Triple G so easily that he doesn't have to fight them. To me, that's a ludicrous statement. To me, that's an ignorant statement. The sport of boxing is the best because of one simple reason. It's man against man or woman against woman. And at the end of the day, if you're the better guy or woman, your hand is raised at the end of the fight. It's that simple. I mean, there's no super catch that can be made. There's no thread in the needle pass that has to be made. There's no, 450 bomb home run that you hit or a pitcher that pitches. An accumulation of other, people on a team. That doesn't happen. It's one guy. It's you. I think Badou Jack didn't want the challenge of Dimitri Bivol. I think that Badou Jack sees an easier win with the aging Adonis Stevenson. I think Badou Jack fell into the clutches and the BS and the smokescreen that Floyd Mayweather has done to you guys, to me, to fans, to his fighters. And they get so wrapped up with the money. And Floyd is a successful man. There's no question about it. But they get wrapped up. They, too, want to be like that. They, too, want to flush money down the toilet. They, too, want to own a jet and mansions here and there. They, too, want to owe the IRS millions and millions of dollars. So they're going to follow Floyd's example. And if they play their cards right, they, too, will get in trouble with the law. They will owe millions and millions of dollars to the IRS. And they will duck their way to fame and fortune, just like Floyd Mayweather did. And in my opinion, Badou Jack could arguably be the best light heavyweight out there today. You know, just like Gervonta Tank Davis could very well be one of the best lightweights or junior welterweight, whatever the division he's going to fight in now, you know, out there today. You know, as a lightweight, I thought Adrian Broner was one of the best. But we all saw what happened to them. Be careful who you listen to, boys and girls, because sometimes what they got, you may never see. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Stop living with hair loss, that is. Losing your hair is no fun, and no one wants to be bald, but there is hope.
Getting my hair back was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I'm happy with the way I look now. I'm very excited about my hair.
I feel beautiful.
I love my hair.
Hair Club offers all proven hair loss solutions backed by our commitment to satisfaction guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with the solution you choose, Hair Club will apply the purchase price to another proven hair loss solution or transplant more hair at no charge.
It was the best thing I've ever done.
It looks good on me.
Call in the next 5 minutes to get your free brochure at no obligation. It will tell you everything you need to know about your hair loss problem, and it's free if you call now.
I am more pleased than what I had even imagined.
I at least look, I would say, 5 years younger.
I'm 52, and I look better now than I did when I was in my 40s.
I feel great.
And that's not all. The first 100 people who call will also receive $250 off any hair loss solution from Hair Club. Call now.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And tell them Billy C sent ya.
Broadcasting in all corners of the globe, on the web and radio.
He would scoff at a stretcher then, man, I would
You're listening to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From upstate New York in the good old US of A.
Boxing is here to stay because we are here to stay.
The best 2 hours of boxing talk on the airwaves. Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening and watching the Billy C Show. Glad you could be with us today. And speaking of being with us today, is my man, Larry Hazzard. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Billy.
How you making out, my man?
Very good, Billy.
You know, we had some great fights this past weekend, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But some things came up, and it's right up your alley. And I know we've kind of talked about this before, but, you know, we had the Canelo Triple G fight and the scoring issues that we had. And last night we saw another draw. People felt that it wasn't fair, whatever. And over the weekend, we also saw Joseph Parker fight Hughie Fury, and Hennessy was complaining that Fury got robbed, that he was like Ali in the ring. And the one thing I've always said is, Muhammad Ali and guys like him and Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard, their ability to hit on the move, effectively hit on the move, is a lot different than throwing a punch and then basically backpedaling to the other corner where you're not hitting your opponent and your opponent's not hitting you either. It's a big difference between those two, and I think people get lost in that discussion, and so do judges maybe. And as I'm sitting here looking at this which seems to be increase of wacky scorecards, I start to think about our scoring system and when we changed to the 10-point must system and why we changed. We did it mainly to try to avoid draws. We added the third judge to avoid draws, and it seems like we have them. But the one thing that comes to mind, Larry, is something you and I have talked about. Do you think it's time to change the scoring system? I mean, if you look at a fight, and you and I are scoring a fight, and it's a 10-round fight, let's say, and one fighter, they're close rounds. Let's say it's a 10-round close fight. All 10 rounds are close. And I give one guy the edge in every round for whatever reason, and at the end of the fight, he wins on my scorecard 100-90. You give, one round you give to that one, the next one, and next thing you know, your scorecard is 95-95, and people are crying that it's a corrupt, you got Teddy Atlas saying it's corrupt, I'm corrupt, I scored. But I mean, that's the way the scoring system works today. I mean, do you think it's time to change it, and if so, what could we do to make it better?
Well, I definitely think it's time to change it. But the key is to how do we make the system more reasonable and seem better, as you say. We're thinking about in New Jersey, as I said last week, we're thinking about adding 2 more judges. Okay, now, of course, the criticism is going to be, well, instead of 3 blind mice, you got 5. Okay, but I'm leaning more towards thinking, and of course, it's like anything else. You have to try something new. If we can't do anything with the numbers, because let me tell you, I really do think that if judges became more liberal with the numbers, I think that we will see a change in how these bouts are scored. But you cannot get them to do that. What I mean, Billy, is that we know that if the numbers are supposed to paint a picture of what is going on in the ring. So if the judges constantly and refuse to break out of that 10-9 mold for every round if a knockdown is not scored, then I think that this is working to the detriment of the system and working to the detriment of a fighter who should be given credit for more. In other words, if a round is close, and as you just said, if a round is close, then that's deserving of a 10-9 score. But if a round is not close, and I don't mean it has to be won by one fighter by a wide margin or overwhelming. If the round is not close, then that round should not be a 10-9. It should be a 10-8. Okay? And on down the line. Now, if a knockdown is scored, okay, the round should be a 10-7. You see how we're expanding these numbers? And then, we have to utilize these numbers more. That's one point that I think judges are hesitant to do that because if they end up with a wide margin now in a fight that should have really been a wider margin, they're going to get criticized because the commentators and everyone else is just not used to that. That's one approach. The other approach, okay, I think is worth trying. Let's say that a good judge does have a bad night, okay? So if you add another 2 judges, because you don't want to make it even. You want to always keep an odd number of judges. And I think the reason is obvious. So if a judge does have, if you buy into the bad night theory, okay, then if a judge has a bad night, that's going to be offset by the other 2. I certainly don't think that 2, and of course, you want to make sure that you got the best judges in all, especially high-profile and championship fights. You want to have boxing's best judges, regardless of where they come from, okay? And I think that the promoters would agree on that, especially in world title fights or these high-profile events that, get so much focus. But, that's my feeling on this whole judging issue, Billy, because we're never going to be able to make 3 people or 4 people or 5 people see something the same way when it's open to that subjectivity. It's just not going to happen. So we have to try to manipulate the other aspects of the judging genre to see if we can improve on it. So I'm willing to try these things, because if we don't, we're going to just constantly be complaining about the same thing over and over and over. In another couple of months, another big fight is going to happen again. So that's the way I feel about it.
The thing is we talked last time. The criteria has to be hit home with the judges. What order, whether it has to be revisited and people look at it and say, okay,
yes,
this has to be. This is the most important part of the criteria. This effective punches, harder punches. This is the most important one. But then the thing that needs to be discussed within the judging, within the judge world, is how many stiff jabs that land flush on the face equal that power punch. I mean, I can't see giving a round to a guy, and I've heard the commentators, because you're 100% correct when you say that the commentators sometimes sway the opinion of the fan, and even the judges sometimes, because they're sitting right next to them. One of them, sometimes they are, depending upon the commission, where they're commenting and they get swayed. How many solid, stiff jabs that land straight in the face equal a power punch? I've heard commentators say, well, that power punch just won him the round. He landed that one punch. That's the only punch he landed in the freaking round, and he won the round for that. I don't agree with that, so you got to land more than one. So, I mean, that has to be ironed out. I also love your theory and thought and idea of utilizing more points, and not to promote them in any way, shape, or form. But the WBC had come out with an idea about implementing technology with a device that can help judges score. There's no mistakes. They didn't write the number on the wrong column. The guy didn't have to take his shoes off to add up the scorecards. With a device that lets them do that. That can add it up quickly, so that those scores are immediately forwarded to the person in the commission that is keeping track. So I agree with that. And then the other thing could be like you said, add another judge. But what about if the judges, and again, if you took the paperwork out, what if the judges were scoring the round in 3 parts? The first minute, second minute, third minute. Because a lot of times what happens is, and your guy, Sugar Ray Leonard, kind of changed this a little bit when he fought Hagler. He won rounds on scorecards by what we call stealing a round by coming on strong in the last 40, 45 seconds, and the judge might, because they're human, might be thinking, of that last 45 seconds when they go to write the score down. Maybe if it was broken into the 3 minutes somehow, break a round down in 3 minutes and then tally that up. What's your thoughts on something like that?
Hey, Billy, I'm all for any. I think it's a good idea. I think we should be exploring all of these ideas. The only problem that I see a lot in judging is that even when I listen to some of the comments that judges make at seminars, I mean seasoned judges, I listen to them and then I say to myself, see, this is again where some of the difficulty lies. It's their interpretation of what they're looking at. You just can't get them on the same page. And that's where you start getting these fluctuations in the scores. I think that we have to find a way, and I think it's going to have to be some mechanical means, because, when we're leaving everything open to the interpretation of these individuals, and you got 3 different or 4 or 5 different people looking at things, looking at the same thing, but interpreting it differently. And I think that's definitely where the problem lies.
You're right. You're 100% right. It's human. It's subjective. You and I could be sitting right next to each other and watch the same punch and be so adamant about going in opposite directions about the punch. And give each other reasons why we're right. And just never agree. Never agree. And that's the subjectivity of the sport, which kind of sucks. But you're right. You just hit on the most important thing. If you could take the human, and this is what kills me about Jim Lampley, and why I said that he's lost the ability to call a fight, because he bases his commentary on what the punch stats are, and those are the same thing. They're not even a talented judge that are keeping track of the punches, and he's talking about it like it's a statistic, like in baseball or football. You run the ball, 10 times, you gain 10 yards a carry, you got 100 yards, you average at 100 yards. That's a statistic. It's cut and dry. I mean, boxing isn't like that. Yeah,
that's a finite. Yes,
exactly. Boxing's not like that, and yet they're being held accountable for it. Because you got guys like Lampley. And even the people that are taking that are counting the punches, next thing you know, it's a robbery, because punch stat says that he landed 40% of his punches and the other guy landed 20%. How could that guy have won the fight? And like you've said many times, well, those stats are cumulative. They could be looking at a cumulative over the course of 10 rounds. But, 3 of those rounds where the guy was almost beaten to death, and they should have been scored 10-8, So sometimes those stats are skewed, And the other thing that bothers me is the same judges that are being criticized, and I criticize them myself. They're the ones teaching the young judges how to score, So I mean, it's like you're training the next generation to be just as bad. You're not correcting the problem. It's like one of the things that just irks me is Joe Cortez. Nothing against him personally, a nice guy, but I thought he was a horrific referee. I really did. I mean, a lot of times, in cases where a fighter looked like he was gonna really get hurt, who's the ref but him? And then to find out he's the head of teaching referee school in Vegas, I'm like, what's going on,
Well, this guy there's a judge in Las Vegas, Dwayne Ford. Dwayne Ford, in my opinion, you have to. I feel very confident if you go and check the most controversial fights that occurred in Las Vegas. Ford was involved in it, and he's been teaching the judges. As a matter of fact, you have to pass his test. The ABC has this guy, or had him, teaching judges, and I used to get complaints from people coming back with some of the most ridiculous theories. Supposedly, they were blaming him or saying that this is what he's espousing. But he was or still is. Well, I think they were using this guy Weisfeld at the last ABC confab, which I never attend. I haven't attended one in the last 15, 20 years, okay? But you are so correct. They have to go and get this so-called ABC certification. Dwayne Ford, who was one of the judges in the Bradley-Pacquiao fight where Pacquiao got robbed, he was one of the judges in that, okay, which in my opinion was one of the worst decisions in the 21st century thus far, okay, maybe going head-and-head now with Canelo and Triple G. But you are so right, and so now, these are, you got people like that who are supposed to be the teachers of new judges. So that's another problem. That's a real serious problem.
And, the other thing that really always irks me too is after a controversial scorecard, it's like they get rewarded. Next thing you know, they're in another big fight, and it's like, wait a minute, what happened here? Why are they getting rewarded instead of reprimanded?
Well, there are a lot of good judges out there in boxing, Billy. Believe me, but they don't get the opportunity. You see the same old people over and over and over. Every world title fight, no matter where it is in this country, you could pretty much name who the judges. I could tell you who the judges are going to be, okay? And no one has told me. They use the same people over and over and over. And now, of course, I really love this HBO as now. I guess Harold Letterman now is the standard for who's a good judge, because at the end of every big fight, they go to Letterman. Well, Harold, who are the judges?
That's right.
So he gives his opinion. Oh, this is Joe Smith. In his last fight against so and so, he had this winner. I had so and so. So that makes you the standard.
Yeah.
That makes Letterman the standard now for who's a good judge. So since Joe Smith didn't have it the way you had it in the last one, he's not good. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I look at all of these subtleties that is being fed out there to the millions of fans that's watching these events, and that's also a major problem. The way that they influence the thinking of the fans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's the worst part, because you have a generation of young fans. We want them to be lifelong fans. Our goal is to carry the torch, pass it to somebody. And they're being influenced by the nonsense, because the generation today is, they want to touch it, feel it, see it on their own, which I can understand. But when you're listening to a guy, and you just threw that perfectly. I mean, Harold Letterman is a friend. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
but you're right.
Telling it like it is.
No. Listen, let me finish. You're right. Who is he? He compared it. Hey, I think he's a good judge. Oh, that means he's good. Then it's the same thing with Lampley. Calling a referee. They're the ones that say Steve Smoger's a great referee. I think he's terrible. I never saw a referee beat up a fighter that he didn't like more than the fighter does. He slaps him around, he pushes him. I mean, he's terrible. And you're also right.
Don't get me started.
I know. And you're also right about seeing the same guys. Like it's almost like the fan base is being brainwashed when they see the guy. Oh, he must be good. He must be good. So I don't know. I think if there was a way to take the human element out of the judging, I think that would help. And what we talked about last week too, Larry, and I know it sounds ridiculous because we both agree that there's nothing better than sitting ringside, but maybe because of the advances of technology, maybe it is time to remove the judges and put them in the cone of silence type room or something where they can only just focus on the fight. Who knows? Maybe.
Well, I mean, you know, we got a lot of time, hopefully, okay, to try some of these new things that we're talking about, because we can't just continue to do things. You know, how does it go if you just keep doing things the same way and you're expecting a different result? You're crazy.
Yeah,
isn't that what they call insanity?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So,
Doing the same thing.
There it is, right there.
Yeah.
We have to try new things.
Yeah, it's sad because, you know, you're and the most important thing is what we said. You know, it's subjective. So then, how do you really, you know, if you are a commissioner, you take one of your judges that is out of whack, like you know, just for argument's sake, Adderley Bird, you take in the room and you go through the fight round by round, and you say, okay, Ms. Bird, what did you see in this round? And she's giving you the same score as she scored during the fight, and she's giving you her subjective opinion why. How can you honestly say you're wrong to this person? I mean, in a way, you can't. You know, I mean, you could say, well, you know, how did you ever become a judge? That wasn't landed, but realistically, you can't. You know, so it's like when a kid comes home and shows the parents, you know, the low grade on the test, and he says, I tried my hardest, I studied, I did everything. I mean, what are you supposed to say? You know, I mean, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. So, you know, if you can't do it that way, well, then the system has to change. And, you know, whether it be adding judges or changing the numbers, get away from 10, you know, we have to do something. But
we do.
And you know, I think we both agree that 2017 has been a banner year for the sport. And I think that, you know, how time, I always said time for everybody, but specifically in the sport of boxing, time is the biggest enemy. It's an enemy for fighters, you know, they age, you know, it's an enemy for all of us. And we're in a situation now where we've had a great year of boxing, 2017, whether people realize it or not. We've seen a lot of great fights on TV. They've been accessible. Now's the time to make the change. We can't just talk about it and let it drag out and wait for boxing to get in a lull again and then just nobody cares anymore. You know, now's the time because, you know, all the powers that be have to get up off their asses and do something about it. And you know what? I know how you feel about the ABC. If they're a wasted organization, then kick them to the curb. You know, get something that is more, get some kind of a unity among the commissions on their own. They don't need to join the ABC to go.
Well, you know, I've always gone solo, and I don't intend to stop. And I'm moving ahead with this judging issue. Criticize us if you want, but at least you criticize us for trying to make a change, trying to make some improvement. If it doesn't work, then we'll try something else. But we're really getting ready to move ahead with this 5 judges. We're going to try, okay? So if you want to say we got 5 blind mice now instead of 3, then that's better than doing nothing.
Well,
okay?
I tell you what, the odds of having 5 blind it's better not to have 5 blind than it is to have 3 blind. You know, at least maybe you'll end up with 2 guys that can see. You know what I mean? So you know,
that's what I'm looking at.
Right. You know, the odds are in your favor, and I applaud everything you do. And you know, the thing is you know, it irks me. I always you know, yell at the screen when I hear a guy like Lampley say, you know, replay should be in boxing. I'm like, it's in New Jersey, you idiot. You know?
We already got it.
Yeah, you know.
We already got it.
So it's
that's how much they know. That's how much they stay on top of what's going on.
No, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. They don't. It drives me insane of how they don't. It's like they cram for that test just before the fight, and it kills me. It kills me, you know. But hey, Larry, a couple of fights that took place over the weekend, I want to get your thoughts on. First and foremost, on Friday night we saw 2 title fights on ESPN for WBO belts. Oscar Valdez had a tough fight against Genesis Cervania, retained his belt in a very entertaining fight. You know, I like Oscar Valdez, and I say to myself, you know, this is why I feel that a fast road to a title doesn't necessarily help a fighter. Now, in his case, he came out with a win. But I saw so many chinks in his armor in that fight, specifically no defense and stuff like that. And these are the kinds of fights that could mentally ruin a fighter. This kid, Cervania, from the Philippines, was undefeated, and the computer somehow ranked him like number 25 or something like that. And when I was researching the fight before I talked about it on Friday morning, I'm looking at all these fighters that he fought, and I admitted that I had never heard of them. But the one thing that stood out at me was that they all had legitimate records, you know. So I thought that we were going to see a tough guy in there, and man, did we see. What's your thoughts on a guy like Valdez and the fast road to a title? Do you think he's got more pressure now to improve, and can he improve? Is this a guy that, you know, mentally has accepted that he's a champion, that he's the best? How hard is it for a fighter to make the adjustments that he obviously has to make?
Well, it could sometimes work. It could go either way, Billy. Sometimes that fast road to a title could ruin a fighter, depending upon, you know, how much punishment, how much he leaves of himself in the ring after the fight. Okay, but on the other hand, what I think that this kid, I think what this kid Valdez does have the potential of doing is now becoming a better fighter, okay, psychologically and mentally, because he is the champion. So I think it's going to work to his benefit, because I do see some raw abilities there. Although, you know, they took that fast path, he's there now, okay? So I think that it could work to his benefit because he is the champion. But oftentimes, a lot of times, it goes the other way, okay, because, you know, the road was too quick, and they found, you know, it's like, wow, look what I got, now I don't know what to do with it, you know, and oftentimes they leave too much of themselves in that fight, and they can't move to the next level or improve, but I think that he has the potential of doing it.
You know, it's similar to Andre Berto. That's exactly what you just described is exactly what happened to Andre Berto. You know.
Yes.
And also on that card, we could say the same things for Gilberto Ramirez. You know, this was a guy that, you know, fought a very aged Arthur Abraham, got his belt, and I honestly didn't give Jesse Hart much of a chance against him. Jesse Hart's been coddled, and man, I know he lost the fight, but Jesse Hart impressed the hell out of me. And again, similar to Valdez, I see Ramirez take a lot of punches. Young kid, champion. You know, will he be able to rebound? I mean, he won the fight, but he took a beating. You know, despite the score.
You know, Billy. You know, I said this a while back about Jesse Hart. I knew his dad, Cyclone.
Right.
Cyclone was a hell of a fighter. He could knock a building down with that left hook that he had. And I said it early on with Jesse, and God bless the kid, because he had a hell of a role model. But sometimes you have to modify your approach. He doesn't have the power that his father had, and Jesse, in all of his earlier fights, you know, he's knocking these guys out, okay? But it wasn't because of his power. It was just simply because the guys wanted out of there because they didn't have the ability to stay there. You know, they weren't at his level. But I saw early on that Jesse needed to fight a little bit differently than his dad, instead of going out there looking for that knockout, because he was loading up. That was his style, loading up on every shot. And he just doesn't have the physical power that his father, Cyclone, had. And I think that had he early on, and I don't know, maybe he can, because the kid is the kid can fight, and he's a great kid. I mean, a nice kid, too. You know what I mean? And I think if they could just modify his style a little bit, you know, and tell him, don't try to load up and knock everybody out. Just go out there, settle in to your comfort zone. If the knockout comes, it comes. If not, you can still do well and look good, you understand, winning big. So I think if they could modify Jesse just a little bit, that he could come back from that defeat, okay, because oftentimes you can learn from a defeat, okay, and it doesn't have to defeat you totally, but you can gain from a defeat, and I think that Jesse has the ability to do that.
You know, I agree with you 100%, and you know, it seemed like it's similar to Kevin Rooney. I was real good friends with Kevin Rooney, and no matter who went into that gym, he was teaching them the bob and weave style. Like, he was successful with Mike Tyson. He had tall, lanky guys, and they're bobbing and weaving. You know, he never was able to.
And the number system.
Right. They actually, let me tell you, and this is no BS. They still have the tapes that Customato make that is yelling out the numbers. That's what's playing in that gym. I'll tell you that right now. But anyway, similar to what he did by teaching everybody the same style. That's kind of what Jesse Hart. Guy was fighting like he's a short, stocky fighter like his pops. You know, you see him with the uppercut, trying to land the uppercut, which was devastating and powerful. But a guy like him, tall and lanky, why isn't he boxing more? You know, why isn't he moving more? You know, I mean, if he moved around and circled a little, Ramirez really. I mean, I'm sorry. Ramirez, Ramirez. Yeah, Ramirez didn't. I already was thinking of something else, but Ramirez, you know, he's Gilberto Ramirez is a kind of guy that likes you to be in his wheelhouse. You know, if you were circling around, sticking him with a jab, you know, I don't know. We haven't seen what he could do yet. You know, and they didn't make the adjustment they should have. So we agree there. But the other fight I wanted to ask you about was the Linares fight against Luke Campbell. Linares started out, and the fight, every time I think of Jorge Linares, I think of the Antonio DeMarco fight, where Linares looked like a superstar, and he goes to, and DeMarco goes to his corner, I believe it was the 11th round, and the corner guy looks at him and says, "Hey, Tony, you're losing this fight. You need a knockout to win." And he looks and he says, "Okay," and he goes out and boom, knocks him out in the 11th round. I was like, maybe you should have told him that in the 7th, you know, but Linares looked the same. He looked fantastic in the first couple of rounds. Then all of a sudden, this kid Campbell, I thought, was landing the more meaningful punches, was rolling with a lot of the punches with Linares, and kind of took over the fight. I was a little surprised that that Linares got the win. I actually thought that was a legitimate draw or close. You know, what was your thoughts on that fight?
Well, I thought that he kind of edged it out a little bit toward the end of those close rounds. You know, I said they're going to give it to him, and I kind of called that right. Okay, but he really had a close call there. It could have been. It was a fight that I think that could have gone either way. I would have had no problem. It could have been a draw, but I had no problem with the decision.
Yeah, you know, and this was a case, we were kind of talking about this earlier today. This was a case where I think Linares did so well in the first part of the fight that it carried him through. Yes. And if you were going to watch the punch stats, they probably will also indicated higher rates because of the amount of punches he was able to throw in the first 3 or 4 rounds, which stopped after that. You know what I mean? So, you know, when we look at all these things that the viewing audience is being shoved down their throat, when you read between the lines, sometimes it's not what it appears to be, you know, and it's crazy. One last thing, Larry, the World Boxing Super Series, which is coming to New Jersey, I can't wait for that fight. I'm trying to arrange where I'm going to come down there. There's another fight near me, so I'm trying to see if we can get coverage. Either me or Dax will definitely be down there, but Dorticos, Unier Dorticos, knocked out Dmitry Kudryashov. I love this World Boxing Super Series, and quite honestly, I don't understand why the cruiserweight division is not popular here in the United States. It features guys that are 200 pounds. Generally, they're in great shape. It's basically the heavyweight division of 30 years ago and further back.
Yes.
What's the problem? Is it just because it's called cruiserweight? I mean, don't boxing fans see what I see?
I don't know. I think that the cruiserweights, if they had through the years, since we, like you said, the cruiserweight division today is the heavyweight division of past decades. But they never really had, in my opinion, the real superstars that the heavyweight division and some of the other divisions have had. It seems like, fighters just shied away from that. You had great light heavyweights, and then the great light heavyweights would bypass the cruiserweight division and jump right up to the heavyweight division for the money. I think that was one of the problems with the cruiserweights. They never... Can you name me a real cruiserweight superstar, or 3 or 4 or 5 real superstars in the cruiserweight division? I can't name any. The one cruiserweight that really comes to mind going back, I remember I was a Marvin Camel, one of those guys. I have to struggle to name the big stars in the cruiserweight division, okay? And I think that has been part of the problem with the cruiserweights, But heavyweights, we never had a problem with. And even some of the other lower weight classes, the real superstars. Somehow, the cruiserweight division just has suffered from its lack of real superstars to bring some attention to that division. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Carlos De Leon, remember him? I mean, he was
De Leon.
Yeah, he was good. And today we have a really good crop of cruiserweights, but unfortunately the interest level isn't there, so they don't get the TV time, so they don't get the recognition, and they're lost from our memory banks, and it's a shame because that's that 200-pound chiseled guy. I mean, I can't recall seeing a cruiserweight that comes in and you say to yourself, oh, geez, he's a fat pig. I've seen many heavyweights that I say, wow, he should be a cruiser. Joey DeWedgeko is a great example. The kid's got a good jab. He's got some pop. And he's going to get hurt, because he shouldn't be a heavyweight. I mean, he weighs enough to be a heavyweight, but if he lost 40 pounds and was a cruiserweight, the guy would be something, And I just it's easier for a fighter to be a heavyweight when they don't have to worry about weight, So
they don't have to worry. They don't have to worry about weight. And if we could get a real charismatic cruiserweight, see, charisma has a lot to do with the the networks and the fans, and I think that would help the cruiserweight division also. A real charismatic cruiserweight who could fight and who could maintain that weight and stay there and promote that division.
Right.
I think that would definitely help.
Right, because what they do today is as soon as they gain any kind of success and notoriety in the cruiserweight,
they want to go to heavyweight.
They move to heavyweight because that's where the money is. You're right. If the money was in cruiserweight, you'd see a lot of people stay there. And I think this World Boxing Super Series is helping us with that. And let me tell you, you got a great fight coming to you on the 21st. Yeah, those guys, Gaziev and Christopher Lazarek in Jersey. I mean, let me tell you, that is gonna. You're gonna be. I can't wait to talk to you after that fight because I'll be shocked if that doesn't turn out to be what I'm expecting. So, and then the next tier of this tournament is going to be fantastic. I mean, so far the fight I'm really looking forward to is one this weekend with Mike Perez. Remember the Cuban guy that was a heavyweight?
Oh yeah,
and he's fighting at cruiserweight now. So I'm really I'm excited to see how he looks at a weight that he should have been to begin with. So, hey Larry, I know we went over our time, and I appreciate you sticking around, my man.
That's okay. I love it, man.
All right, brother. Well, listen, I'll talk to you next week. All right.
Okay, Billy.
All right. Have a good one.
Take care.
All right. Ciao. That's my man Larry Hazzard sticking around. Doing me a favor, hanging out a little longer today. But, hey, keep your eyes on New Jersey. They're going to make the first big change that's going to help this sport. I got faith in my man. Hey, I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, I got some emails I'm going to read, so don't go nowhere.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
This is important news for people who had a hip replacement and then had to have additional surgery as the result of a faulty hip implant or were diagnosed with high levels of metal in the blood, known as metallosis. You may have a right to a cash award and medical expenses. If you have been diagnosed with high levels of metal in your blood or have required more surgery because of hip implant failure, call the law offices of Davis & Crump right now. Our first consultation is free and we don't get paid unless you get paid. Call now. Operators are standing by.
If you're over the age of 50 and considering buying an annuity in the next 60 days, I have some important news for you. Don't buy an annuity until you understand the pros and cons of annuities. A free book to help you maximize your retirement income from television host and three-time author Josh Melberg has been released. This book reveals little-known truths about annuity strategies in simple-to-understand terms. Grab a pen right now because we are about to offer you this free book that unlocks the 5 little-known secrets we believe baby boomers and seniors should know before buying an annuity. Call 800-493-9652 now, and you'll receive a free copy of Josh Melberg's book, Next Gen Annuity Strategies Revealed. As a bonus, we'll also send you the #1 mistakes retirees are making with their investments today, and a free DVD on how you can get up to 33% more income in retirement. Call 800-493-9652 to have your free information kit rushed to your door. Again, that's 800-493-9652.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you! I hate you!
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening and watching the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us today. And there is no blast from the past today. Alex had an emergency come up. Don't worry, everything's good. And we'll be back next week. Our blast from the past next week will be Julian Jackson. So he was a request. And if you have a request for a blast, just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing. That's TALKINBOXING.com. And if you guys check us out on our YouTube channel, subscribe. We're actually trying to increase our subscription numbers. It's something we just really decided that we wanted to start to do. We really didn't care much about it, to be honest, at one point. But right now, we are expanding to different television networks. Stay tuned for some exciting news on that. And our next Billy C. Boxing event, we will be doing another Revisited. And just to give you a quick idea about that, what we're going to do is we're going to do another event. And it'll be basically 3 classic fights in one night, 3 or 4, that we will call and put on live on the screen, and we're going to call it as if they're live. They're going to be back to back to back to back. So it would be a nice 2.5 hour event for you to attend. So keep your schedule open, because we'll be getting you some dates pretty soon. It'll be over a weekend, and tentatively it'll be at St. Simon's Island again, although there has been some talk of it being in upstate New York. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. We got my man Soup Steve in the chat room, and I just asked him, I assumed he likes soup since his handle was Soup Steve, and I asked him, hey, did you ever have stuffed pepper soup? It's one of my favorites, man. I have a buddy of mine used to work for me, and he's makes stuffed pepper soup. I love it. And I asked him if he ever heard of it, and he says, I had stuffed peppers plenty, soup all the time, never stuffed pepper soup, though. Well, I tell you what, man, I'll teach you how to make some stuffed pepper soup, Soup Steve, because that's some great stuff, let me tell you. It's, I'm drooling just thinking about it. And by the way, speaking of drooling, I got turned on to I like hot food, and I got turned on to a new hot pepper. Now, up to that point, I'm a big habanero pepper guy. I love habanero pepper, but it took me a little while, years ago to develop a taste for it, meaning I could handle it. It was pretty hot. Then they came out with the ghost pepper, and ghost pepper to me, it's not a tasty hot. It's just a hot. Well, I got turned on to a pepper that's hotter than ghost peppers. It's called, what do they call it? Carolina Reaper peppers. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Carolina Reaper pepper. It's supposed to be the hottest pepper on the planet. And I got some. And it kind of looks similar to a habanero or a, what do they call them? The Scottsdale, whatever they call them. And also ghost pepper. They all look similar, right? But the Carolina Reaper pepper looks pretty close to a habanero. And I had one yesterday. Now, I knew it was going to be one of these peppers that were just killer, not enjoyable hot. Like I like a hot, but I like enjoyable hot. I like to be able to, where you can't stop eating them type hot. Not where you want to go jump into a lake and where you crap for 6 days straight. And, to me, that's not enjoyable. Where you touch the pepper and then you take a leak and then, you can imagine what happens. But anyway, I anticipated that the Carolina Reaper pepper was going to be a hot one. So I took one pepper, and they're small. They're like a habanero. And I put it in a big pot of chili, all right? Clearly the hottest pepper I've ever had. One pepper. Now, usually I'm in a habanero, I'm putting 4 or 5 in a bowl of chili. In a pot of chili. Forget about a bowl. One of these peppers, this Carolina Reaper pepper, and a big pot of chili was still maybe too much. Like maybe I'm thinking a half of one next time. That's how hot they are. If you like hot peppers, go find one, try it. Let me know what you think. Billy at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing.com. A couple of emails. This first one's from Jesse. He says, hey, Billy, what's going on? He says, Fury versus Briggs is a joke. I think Fury still beats him, even in his current status of 300 pounds plus. I agree. I agree with you. He says, Billy, do you know who Don Shargan is? I hear he works with Golden Boy. He's been in boxing since the 50s. Of course I know Don Shargan. He was a promoter out west for a long time. He's a Boxing Hall of Famer. It was a pioneer promoter, so to speak, at least pioneer to today's style of promoters. Very well known. I believe Don's got a book out as well, and he's still involved in the sport. He's got some fighters, but he's not frontline promoter anymore. More of a backline. If you do come to the International Boxing Hall of Fame ceremonies each June, Don is usually there. So he says, can you do a blast from the past with Tony Lopez? Tony the Tiger Lopez out of Sacramento. Can you put him in with Prince Hamid, Morales, Barrera, Lomachenko, Mikey Garcia? I will definitely put Tony the Tiger Lopez on the list. Generally, we do the comparisons with the blast from the past fighters with current champions, but we could try and do something like that. Tony the Tiger Lopez was on this show a couple of times, actually. Really nice guy. Runs a gym, and he's in business for himself. Great guy. Loves the sport. Loves coming on. Maybe I should have Tony come back on one of these days. I can reach out and see. He was a great interview. And, you know, I tell you, I've been threatening this for a long time, but I have so many interviews that we have that I should put together on some kind of a DVD or something. I'm talking classic interviews. Danny Garcia, when he was like 3 or 4-0. My man Yuriel Gamboa, when he first swam over here on a coconut raft. You know, we had an interpreter for him. Of course, Tony Danza we had on. Mike Tyson I never had on, but I had Sugar Ray Leonard was on. I can't even remember. We had who's the guy from he was fighting in these celebrity fights from the Partridge Family. Danny Bonaducci was on. A lot of guys that have a connection with boxing, and then of course all the other fighters too. Andre Berto when he was up and coming. I mean, a lot of guys. Keith Thurman was on. A lot of great interviews. I should put them all together. But anyway, he says I read that Demetrius Andrade is facing Alantez Fox. How do you see this matchup? Is Fox ready, or did he need more work? He has long arms, 79-inch reach. I think it's interesting, but Fox still needs a year or two for more work. I agree. I think that Alantez Fox should not be rushed. Demetrius Andrade might be one of the saddest stories in boxing. And I say this because he made such a terrible decision by signing and then re-signing. And I hate to say this because I personally love Joe DeGuardia. I consider him a friend. But signing with Star Boxing and they tied, because they had that fight, he kind of he's also got Banner promotion, so he's co-promoted by Banner and Star, and because of it, the guy he doesn't fight enough, and you could say that people are ducking him all you want, but which I believe is partially true, but unfortunately for us and Demetrius Andrade, he's with the wrong people. And you could make the argument, the topic of the day a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago, I lose track of time, about Andre Ward when he announced his retirement. I said, who cares? It wasn't a knock on Andre Ward, the guy. Yes, he's a diva when it comes to negotiating, but my hang-up and my criticisms of him is the fact that he doesn't draw well. And that's not Andre Ward's fault. I mean, yes, he's not an exciting fighter. Yes, he does. He's a good guy, so he doesn't. He's not in the press doing crazy things like beating up women or pimply faced security guards or stuff like that. But he is a guy that was never promoted right. He was with Goose and Tudor for a long time, and Andre Ward should have been a household name and never was. The same thing's happening to Demetrius Andrade, unfortunately, for him. But anyway, thanks for the email. I have another couple of emails. Let me read this one here. This one's from my man Coach. Coach is in the chat room right now. He says, I read yesterday that in the closing hours before Triple G Canelo, the odds for a draw crashed from 30-1 to 15-1. And get this, only Golden Boy wrote out the checks, while the commission chief executive Bob Bennett, that spineless, gutless piece of garbage from the Nevada State Athletic Commission, estimated that the judge were likely to have received somewhere between $100,000 and $500,000 each for their roles in that fight. He says, "What's your thoughts?" Well, the main normally the guy who writes out checks. Now, this has nothing to do with the gambling line that Coach put in first. To me, that is kind of interesting that the odds went down. It could have been one huge bet. It could have been a bunch of bets. People. And that wasn't that far-fetched, I mean, to think that, knowing the sport. But generally the promoter, specifically the main promoter of a fight card, writes out all the checks. So that doesn't surprise me. But and neither does the purses for the judges or the referees, because they when there's high-profile fights like this and there's several titles on the line, the sanctioning bodies have a criteria of how much their judges' fees are supposed to be, whether it be a flat rate or a percentage of the purses, and that's why these checks were so outrageous. Just to add to that, so it doesn't surprise me. But what I'd like to add to that is, if you're going to pick a judge and a referee that's going to make 6 figures, you better pick the right ones, no? I mean, you pick these ones that are watching the fight with the same glasses Ray Charles wears, not so good.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks, like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Stop living with hair loss, that is. Losing your hair is no fun, and no one wants to be bald, but there is hope.
Getting my hair back was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I'm happy with the way I look now. I'm very excited about my hair.
I feel beautiful.
I love my hair.
Hair Club offers all proven hair loss solutions backed by our commitment to satisfaction guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with the solution you choose, Hair Club will apply the purchase price to another proven hair loss solution or transplant more hair at no charge.
That was the best thing I've ever done.
It looks good on me.
Call in the next 5 minutes to get your free brochure at no obligation. It will tell you everything you need to know about your hair loss problem, and it's free if you call now.
I am more pleased than what I had even imagined.
I at least look, I would say, 5 years younger.
I'm 52, and I look better now than I did when I was in my 40s.
I feel great.
And that's not all. The first 100 people who call will also receive $250 off any hair loss solution from Hair Club. Call now.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
If you're over the age of 50 and considering buying an annuity in the next 60 days, I have some important news for you. Don't buy an annuity until you understand the pros and cons of annuities. A free book to help you maximize your retirement income from television host and 3-time author Josh Melberg has been released. This book reveals little-known truths about annuity strategies in simple-to-understand terms. Grab a pen right now because we are about to offer you this free book that unlocks the 5 little-known secrets we believe baby boomers and seniors should know before buying an annuity. Call 800-493-9652 now, and you'll receive a free copy of Josh Melberg's book, Next Gen Annuity Strategies Revealed. As a bonus, we'll also send you the #1 mistakes retirees are making with their investments today, and a free DVD on how you can get up to 33% more income in retirement. Call 800-493-9652 to have your free information kit rushed to your door. Again, that's 800-493-9652.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening and watching the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us today. Don't forget, we're not doing a live show tomorrow or Friday. We're going to be doing some updates here. They may be transparent to you, but needed updates for the systems that run the show. And we're picking, we picked this kind of last minute because of the slow weekend, although there is one big fight that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But one last email. This is from my man Joel. He says, with all the headlines this week with Trump's comments about the NFL and the players not standing for the anthem, I was curious what your thoughts were on this entire issue. I don't appreciate seeing these high-paid players doing this. And what upsets me is if they're unhappy with what's going on with the country, they should be a role model and help their state or community and make a difference and change what bothers them. Otherwise, I was glad to see your Jets get a win this past weekend as meaning Joel's Giants suck. The Giants don't suck. I think the Jets suck, but yeah, they won. You know, the thing about this not standing for the national anthem, it all started with Colin Kaepernick. And he was trying to make a statement. In his opinion, that was how he felt he could make a statement against, civil rights, basically, against the mistreatment of, African Americans. I mean, that's what it started, felt that this prejudice and African Americans don't get a fair shake. Whether you believe that or not, that's neither here nor there. I feel, and this is my opinion just to answer this email, I feel that Colin Kaepernick could have chose another form of his protest. Blanketing the national anthem was a mistake. I believe it was a mistake because being a patriot has nothing to do with race or color or religious beliefs or anything. And I think what's got a lot of people up in arms is the fact that it's going against the country and people are losing sight of the reason why the protest was launched. The protest was launched due to inequality. And, what it's morphed into is, people that are trying to follow that protest because they believe in the inequality issue. And then the people that are looking at it as a knock on the government, on our country, so to speak. Forget the government. President Trump, everything he does, a lot of it is nutcase type stuff, and a lot of it is taken out of text. His point, I believe he was trying to make, even though he's got no couth and can't make it in the right way ever, especially for the media, was that you shouldn't diss the country. And regardless of what your standing is as a professional athlete and how much money you make, etc., you shouldn't knock the country. Because if you weren't in the country, you wouldn't have those opportunities. I believe that everyone should have the freedom of making any kind of protest they want, but they need to do it in a way that focuses on whatever they're protesting, not unless it is the country. I think that what the NFL did this week to show signs of being all together with the NFL. Against the president was kind of stupid. We don't need more division in this country, just like we don't need more division in the sport of boxing. What we need in boxing is unity, and what we need in this country is unity. Whether you're on one side or the other, leave the country out of it, because unfortunately, boys and girls, the world is very unstable right now, in case you haven't noticed. And we need this country to be unified, because God forbid something happens, we're going to be looking to our right and to our left, and we're going to want to see unity, whether the people are in, have the same beliefs as you do, same color as you are, same, background as you, whatever. At the end of the day, you're an American. And I hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, Americans are going to have to stand up for Americans. And all of the protest for inequality and whatever else has to be put on the burner, on side burner, on the back burner. And to drag the U.S. into this was foolish, in my opinion. Although I respect the unity and the back underlying reasons, I think they chose the wrong vehicle. That's just my opinion. Big fight this weekend for the World Boxing Super Series. Maris Briedis, the WBC World Cruiserweight Champion, ranked number 2 in the world, is 22-0 with 18 knockouts. He's 6'1", 32 years old. His biggest win was actually in April when he beat Marco Captain Huck to really bust onto the scene. He also beat Manuel Char, who was a heavyweight. Ismail Abdulzumov, who was a journeyman cruiserweight. But he really busted onto the scene when he won a unanimous decision and picked up the IBO and the vacant WBC World Cruiserweight title. He's a guy with an 82% knockout ratio. Tough guy, 32 years old, 6'1". He's taken on a guy that, I don't think we ever saw the best of him as a pro. The Rebel, Mike Perez, was an accomplished, well-decorated Cuban amateur fighter who defected to the U.S. He fought in the heavyweight division. He, too, is 6'1", but he's a southpaw. I think the problem with Mike Perez is that the biggest battle that he ever fought was getting out of Cuba. And when he came here, he couldn't get up for the box anymore, and his discipline was suspect. Had some big wins as a heavyweight. Beat Travis Walker. Was the guy in the fight that Mago Abdulzumov never was the same after. Had a draw with Carlos Takim. Mike Perez seemingly hasn't been the same after that fight because he came back and had a draw with Carlos Takam. He lost a close fight with Bryant Jennings, fought Darnell Wilson and stopped him. He fought Alexander Povetkin for a interim belt. WBC calls theirs a silver belt back in 2015 and got stopped, injured himself and couldn't continue. And then that was it. His promoter abandoned him and he didn't fight again until this year when he emerged quietly and fought a 10-0 Victor Biskak in the UK and knocked out Bisak, who was, like I said, undefeated, 10-0 in the first round. This was in June. This fight flew under the radar, at least for me. I didn't realize that he had fought at cruiserweight. The first time I thought he was going to fight at cruiserweight was when he was announced to compete in this tournament. I see after I opened my eyes that he came in fantastic shape for the Biskak fight in June. He weighed 198 pounds, 40 pounds lighter than when he was fighting at the heavyweight division. This guy's the real deal. He's actually the same age, same height as Briedis, Marius Briedis, actually a year younger. He's 22-2 with a draw. I am so looking forward to this fight. I'm a big fan of Mike Perez, and all the pressure's on him. If he should somehow win this and advance in this World Boxing Super Series, it's going to be kudos for him. And maybe he finally understands what he's got to do in terms of dedication and discipline now that he's here in the States after he left Cuba. So I'll be watching that 100%. You can bet your last dollar on that one. On this day, September 27th in 1980, Marvin Hagler knocks out Alan Minter in the third round to win the world middleweight title. That took place in London. On this day in 1986, Lloyd Honeyghan knocks out Donald Curry in the sixth round to win the world welterweight title. That took place in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Shocked me when I watched that fight. Shocked me that my main man, Marlon Starling, went and beat Lloyd Honeyghan. So, on this day in 1983, Frank Cedeno knocks out Charlie McGrady in the sixth round to win the WBC World Flyweight title. That took place in London. On this day in 1946, Tony Zale knocks out Rocky Graziano in the sixth round to retain his world middleweight title. That took place at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. On this day in 1907, Joe Gans wins a 20-round decision over George Mesmic to retain his world lightweight title. That took place in Los Angeles, California on this day in 1907. And finally, on this day, September 27th in 1950, Ezra Charles wins a 15-round decision over Joe Louis to retain his world heavyweight title, and that took place at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Hey, man, that concludes our show for today. Programming note, we will not be doing a live show tomorrow or Friday, but we will return on Monday to talk all about the fights that took place over the weekend and all the latest and greatest boxing news. So make sure you tune in right here. So I'll leave you with this. Make sure you tune in Monday morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until that, ciao, baby.